just got back from an amazing trip to Scotland, and while I was there was lots that I took pictures of that I'm hoping we can paint. Today we're going to do a simple painting from my trip. It is of a clematis plant that I saw in Melrose, Scotland at the Melrose Abbey. Now there's a reason that we're painting this. There are some special people that I met while I was there, and they had a cute little story about a clematis. So come on into the studio with me and let's paint this clematis together. Okay, welcome fellow wanderers. Today we are going to do a clematis against a wall, and I saw this in Scotland at the Melrose Abbey. The colors that we're going to use are dioxazine purple, lavender, sap green. That will be for the flowers and the leaves. And then we're going to do a burnt sienna and a Payne's gray for the brickwork behind. The brushes that I'm using, I'm going to use this from that cobia set. It's a mop brush. I have a little detail brush. I have a size 3 brush, and that's what I'm going to be making the petals with. And then I have a flat brush. We finally get to use a flat brush. I have a Chinese watercolor brush, of course, because I love them. And I have an embossing tool. Now, I will put links to all of these. This is what the package of embossing tools looks like. And this will just make the little veins on our leaves. All right, so what I'm going to try is just putting in a little bit of a wash of our colors. So I'm going to go in here to my lavender, and I am going to just tickle out some really light color. And I'm just going to put it in here where I want the blossoms to be. Now this is just going to be in the background. This is just our underneath wash, so we can even knock that down a little bit. And bring it up like that. And there'll be some out here. And then we're going to paint over the top of that once that dries. Okay, then I am going to get some of my green. And this is just a sap green. And my leaves are going to be down here. And so I'm just going to put in a little bit of this down here. This also helps me visually as I'm painting and I'm putting in the background, which is the bricks, the stonework. I kind of know where to go and where not to go. And then there will be some little leaves up in here. Okay, and this we can bring down, get my brush wet, and just kind of soften that out like that. Okay, that gives me an idea. And then there's a little bit of greenery down in here too. Let's put that in. Okay, now I'm going to put in the color of my bricks, which is this raw sienna, gray. It's just a mix of both. So for the background wash, I'm just going to put in both colors just to get the white off of the paper. That's really all that I'm doing. I could just paint the bricks in, but I think that it might look more pleasing to our eye to do it this way. So we're going to give it a try. Now that came out a little dark, but that's okay. I can just go over that with some water. Just get all this filled in, get all the white of the paper out. Let's knock that down a little bit. There we go. And down here. And that should help us. I'm going to drop in a little bit of gray just for some help for later on. Just some lines for the brickwork. Add a little bit of burnt sienna to that. And it just kind of gives some spots right from the get-go. And this is just our background wash. So that's pretty great. Really, really loose today. We're going to do it tight enough to make it look like clematis, but we are going to paint in a loose manner. So no sketching needed. And that should be good. Maybe put a little bit in here, a little bit here. Okay, let's let this dry and I will be right back. Okay, we're going to start with our lightest clematis blossoms first. Now, I've got some mixed here. I'm going to tap off the end of my brush, and then I'm just going to start creating like that. There's one, there's two, three, 4, 5, and 6. 6 blossoms, 6 little petals. Now, while that's there, if you want to touch into your deeper purple and just put some right like that, then if you get your embossing tool, and I will include a link to this, and this is a little easier than the cut up credit card because you can hold it in your hand a little easier. And there we go. There is our first little blossom. All right, so let's just keep doing that. And we're just going to create some here and there. Try not to let the petals run into each other because it just makes a blob. Sometimes it's hard to keep them from touching. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm going to go into my deeper purple and put it right here in the center. You want all of your points to come to the center. And then I'm going to take my little embossing tool and just pull out some of that deeper purple, and that creates those little color variations in the petals. Okay, let's lighten that up a bit by rinsing off my brush, coming back here into the lavender, tap off the end so that you don't have a big explosion of water. And then for this one, I'm going to create one that's kind of curved to the side. And so there's one there and there. Now, that one might not work so great, but that's okay because these are just kind of blowing in the wind. And so we can make that work. Okay. Don't throw your paper away. If you make one that just doesn't look right, you're going to be adding so many of these. It's not going to be noticeable. And there are things that you can do to it after it dries to fix it. So do not despair. And let's do one like this. The petals here are smaller. Just makes it look like it is maybe in a little different direction. Okay. Now you don't have to put in, you don't have to put in the deeper part in the middle for all of these. This might have dried a little bit. Let's see. So this is the smaller of the embossing tools. It comes with different sizes, and this is the littler one. They all come in the package together. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to put in some of my deeper color of dioxazine purple. Just for some variation, I'm going to tap off the end of my brush. And I'm just going to create some little ones up here. So let's start with this one. 1, 2. And you can just use the tip of your brush. This is a number 3 round. Any little brush that you have will work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and that one I'm just going to leave like that. I'm not going to worry about putting in the little veins because the petals are so dark. And if you don't quite get in all 6, don't worry about it. I don't think anybody's going to count your petals. Better to make it 5 and have them not run into each other than to do 6 and have them kind of mush together. All right, 1, 2. I'm just pulling down and bringing it to a point. By the time you finish this painting, you're going to be a pro at making petals. And remember, this is just paper. Let's see what happens if we do this. We get the... All right, let's try that again and see if we can get the lighter vein in these dark ones. By not dropping in a dark color, but just using our embossing tool. And doing like this and like that. Now, they might be a little bit wet. Let that dry a tiny bit. There. All right, you can kind of see that. Yeah. Okay. And now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a little bit more of the lavender, kind of a mix between the lavender and the dioxazine purple, just for a different shade. Of purple or lavender. Now, the reason that we're doing clematis today is because I met some people when we were in Scotland, Ricky and his wife Pauline, and found out that Pauline is new to watercolor. And so we made an instant connection. And Ricky told us a story about how he was being useful, or he thought he was being useful, to Pauline. There was a lot of debris in the yard, plants that needed to be cleaned out, and so Ricky thought that he would go and do that. He didn't talk to Pauline. That's his first mistake. And so he went out and started ripping stuff up, and it turns out he ripped up a clematis plant that I think had been there 25 years, something like that. And I'm not sure that Pauline has forgiven him. So this is for Pauline. It's not quite the same as a 25-year-old beautiful clematis plant. And I'm not sure that Ricky has learned his lesson, but this is for you, Pauline, nonetheless. And I hope that you continue in watercolor and that you find as much enjoyment in it as I have. All right. Let's just keep going here. Just work your way around and you'll find that your blossoms might start getting a little bit less tight as we go, just because it starts getting tedious after a while if you start doing them too tight and get too precious with them. So you can just get your embossing tool out. If you don't have an embossing tool, you can do something like cut up a credit card and just use the end. Just make sure that it's not ripping up your paper. Okay. And as always, if you are using 100% cotton paper, you'll be able to mess around with your petals a little bit longer. Mine is not 100% cotton. I have these little sketchbooks from a company that my son got me a gift card to. They're not 100% cotton, and they work just fine. So that was super sweet of him. For Mother's Day, he got me a gift card to an art supply place, which is a lovely gift to give the artist in your life. All right. There. My mom loved clematis, and she had one. I believe it was a purple one that grew by our little screened-in back porch. They're just so pretty. And they add such a sweet pop of color, usually in June. At least for us here in the States, I think it's June. And then let's put one here, 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 here. And let's bring that one around and just pull one out right there. You can make it fit. And if not, you can always just take a Kleenex and dab it on there quickly and lift your flower out, let it dry, and then start again. Okay. All right, just a few more. I'm going to put some little ones up here. And work your way around until it looks complete to you. Now remember, we still have to add in our green. Okay. I think that's getting close. Maybe just a couple more to bring some fullness to it. So it looks like it's a vibrant clematis. When we were in Scotland, Ricky took us to some amazing places. We had such a sweet time with him. And if you're going to Scotland and you want a bit of a tour and somebody who knows the lay of the land, contact me in the comments and I will get you his information. He was phenomenal. And we made a new friend, a couple of them. Okay, I think maybe one more, just one more. Now you'll notice as we've gone along, I haven't been putting in the marks in every blossom. And that's kind of on purpose. So that one's kind of turned to the side. And then we'll do one here. It's kind of turned to the side. So when it's turned to the side, you don't need as many petals in it. Okay, I don't even know if that looks like a clematis blossom, but we're going to put it there. Okay, now let's do our leaves. And you can either use the same brush, which is probably the easiest thing to do, just a 3 round, or you can use your Chinese watercolor brush. It makes a nice little leaf pattern. So I'm going to tickle out some sap green here. These leaves are pretty bright. And I'm also going to get a little bit of green gold. Now the green gold is just green with yellow in it. So if you have some yellow, get some yellow and squeeze it out. And you can add it to your green and it will make a lighter leaf. I like there to be a little bit of variation in my leaves. All right, so we're just going to have some leaves kind of spill out, and you can turn your paper however you need it to be able to do this. Just coming out from the blossoms and kind of in between these little flowers. You're just kind of flicking your brush and making two little half circles like that and like that. And once you do a few of these, you'll get better and better at making the leaf shapes. Now on this plant, sometimes it looks like there are clusters of 3. Now this is sap green that I'm coming in with, and just creating some more greenery. Just filling this in with leaves. There are leaves back in the background, and there are leaves spilling out. Okay. There, and there, and one there. And just keep making leaves. We're going to bring the vine down here. So I'm going to have some leaves that are kind of coming down like this. Maybe one here that'll be coming off of these vines. The vines are just going to come up like this. All right. When we were in Scotland, one of the places that Ricky took us to was Stirling Castle. The gardens there were so beautiful. That's what this reminds me of. Now, these flowers were at Melrose Abbey in Melrose, Scotland. They were up against the wall. And there were flowers there, but not as prolific as the ones at Stirling Castle. I took lots of pictures of those flowers, and so maybe we'll be painting those in a later video. I am going to do some videos of some of the landscapes there in Scotland, and we're going to try and paint them. So for now, I'm just taking little random things. I think I have a Highland cow or a hairy coo that we're going to be doing here shortly, and that's from the Scotland trip. But the landscapes we will work on at a later date, especially for those of you who are just starting out. I want to make sure that you're comfortable with your brushes and with simple little things before we take on a whole big picture. So that's why we're just doing these little tutorials. For beginners, it's easier to bite off something like this than to try to do a landscape right away. At least I found it to be so. Now there are some simple ways to do landscapes, and I have done a couple of tutorials that are just very simple little landscapes. But when you are trying to paint actual places, sometimes you have to be a little more precise. Okay, that is a lot of greenery going on. Let's fill in some of this. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to darken up my green. I'm just going to take some of this purple and put it over here with my sap green. Oh, that was way too much. This dioxazine purple does that to me. It just melts in the water, which is lovely. But then when I try to mix it with another color, I often get quite a load on my brush. Okay. I do like that color though. I think it is from M. Graham. It is just so smooth. It's probably the smoothest color that I have, meaning when I get it wet, it just comes right onto my brush. I don't have to scrub and scrub to get it on my brush, which is super helpful when you're painting. Now I'm just coming in around some of these leaves, just in some areas where it's not a big enough space to paint a leaf. I'm just coming in and filling in some dark spots for the shadows. I need more green in that. And a little more water. Okay. So the shadows won't be out there on the end, but they will be in here between the leaves and the petals. And you don't want to overdo this, but it does help take out the white again of the paper. Even though we did that, it's such a light color. So you can do this, or you can put in a little bit of the gray and the burnt sienna. And I'm going to do some down in here. Maybe some that look a little bit more like a leaf. And just like this. Okay. After we were with Ricky for a few days, we took a group of people on a pilgrimage in Scotland, which was super great. It was so beautiful, and it was fun to do the hiking. We got lots of time to just kind of be alone with our thoughts. And we ended up out on Holy Island in England. We walked from Scotland to England and spent some time out on the island. It was just a lovely, relaxing, kind of contemplative trip. And it was fun to do it with people that we love. If you ever get the chance to do anything like that, it is well worth it. All right. And at some point I'll do a video with a little bit more information on that. What we did, what we saw, maybe even what I learned from that. Because you can't go on a trip like that and not be impacted. And I was definitely impacted. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have done that. For me, that becomes like a trip of a lifetime. Okay, do you see how it's helping to fill in some of these spots? Just with some darker background. There we go. All right. Our clematis vines, or the stems, have some brown to them. So we're going to do the burnt sienna. And we're just going to mix it into our green. Burnt sienna mixed into your sap green. And you're going to get a brown. And we're going to kind of come up. Let's see, if the wall cuts off here, then our ground is here. And we're just going to kind of come up into here. Like this. And you know how a clematis kind of comes up from the ground, kind of viney. Like that. And that. And then you can put some little places in between if you want, where those vines might be. Just to kind of tie it all in and connect everything. Okay, so to that, I'm going to add just a tiny bit more of the lighter green. So I'm going to get my green gold. You can add some yellow to your green, or you can just do the sap green. I just thought, since I have it here on my messy palette, right here by my arm, I'm just going to go ahead and then I'm going to run this green up with the brown. Because if I remember correctly, clematises, sometimes they look a little bit, the viney part looks a little bit dead because it's brown. And just add some leaves in here. Okay. I think that's looking really great. Now, if you want, you can come in here. If in the beginning you did what I did and came in with some stronger paint, you might not want to add anything to it. But I think I'm going to take my flat brush, and this is a flat 12 from W.A. Portman. I will put a link to this brush. And I'm just going to, let me show you on this messy palette. I have some gray here. I have some raw sienna here. And I have some burnt sienna. I'm just taking a mix of these colors for the brick, the stone. All right, let me move this so you can see it. All right, I'm going to pull these in. Now, if you noticed, these are just little glass jars for canning. I got these in Germany, but I did find them on Amazon. These are great for just tiny little mixing palettes. So I'll include a link to those. And I'm super glad that they're on Amazon because I think I'm going to want some more of them. I only got 3 when I was there. All right, so I'm not filling in every place, as you can see, but I am doing enough so that it looks like we've got a wall here. Now, my wall is relatively even. If you want your stones to be a little whopper jawed, you can do that. This is your wall, however you want to do it. And I'm just taking raw sienna, burnt sienna, gray, and just making little swipes of color. Now I probably want a different one in there since I've got those. Yeah, like that. This is turning out so great. Pauline, I hope you're liking this. I know it's not the same as having your clematis plant back, but it's really, really pretty, and you could frame it. And I will include a link to the little photo mats that I use when I want to frame these little 5x7s. Now this is a little sketch pad. I am working on 140-pound cold pressed. But I will include a link to a sketch pad that is 100% cotton. I think it's $10 on Amazon. All right, now down here at the bottom, we've got some dirt. So I am just going to get my burnt sienna and some burnt umber, and I'm just going to make my wall kind of come at an angle a little bit here, like that. Now I don't know if this will even show up because of my frame. Probably not. So let's make that come up a little bit higher. Okay, and then drop in a little bit of burnt umber. And I don't have that on your color list, but that should be easy enough for you to grab. Okay, this is turning out really great. All right, I am going to come in with my number 2 again. I am going to get my purple and my green, just to kind of make that brown. And I'm going to come back up through here because that ground kind of washed out my vine. Okay. All right, now there are little white things in the center of these clematis, but I think because we left some white spaces in between, I'm not going to mess with that. Okay, one more thing that we can do is just create some little plants here that are kind of growing up, and just some little leaves coming off of them. And that just adds a little bit over here. Simple enough to do. Just some little green growing up. Can even look like it's another vine trying to grow. And maybe a little bit of the sap green, which is just a little bit brighter of a green. Need a little bit more water on that. Tap off the end of my brush. Yeah. that. Just to fill this part in a little bit. Okay, now we could just keep playing and playing. And I do love to do that. But I am going to tell myself, Mary Kay, I'm just going to throw in a little bit of burnt umber here to ground these plants a little bit. And then I threw in a few little blossoms that fell off. And you could even throw in some little green. It's just kind of fallen here and there. Just like that. Okay. Really, really pretty. Okay, Pauline, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it brings a little bit of comfort to your heart and gives you a nice, pretty clematis to look at. And maybe at some point you can find it in your heart to forgive Ricky for being so helpful. Okay, thanks for joining me. And I hope you come back and wander with me again soon. And blessings to you.